input.
Yeah.
Good evening. Board of Alders notice.
City Services and Environmental Policy Committee of the Board of Alders will meet in person on Thursday, June 2nd, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Board of Alders Chamber located at 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, Connecticut, to hear and act on the following items. Number 1, Allen-2022-0258. Authorization for the mayor to sign project authorization letter for the Water Street Cycle Track project utilizing local transportation capital improvement program, LoSiP funding. Item number 2-2022-0259. Resolution authorizing the mayor to accept funding from the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Connecticut D, and sign any contractors and other documents that may be desirable or necessary, including any subsequent amendments to agreements regarding repairs to the PPL chapter for the Street to be launched. Item number 3, L-2022-0260, resolution authorizing the mayor to accept funding from the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Connecticut D, and sign any associated state agreements with contractors and other documents that may be desirable or necessary, including any subsequent amendments to agreements concerning the 2021 State Diesel Emission Reduction Act, DERA, for the purchase of an electric refuse vehicle. Item number 4, L-2022-0180, from Greater Kaminsky, requesting a public hearing concerning the proposed gas power leak lower restriction/ban. Per order, Honorable Anna and Valdez Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Clerk. These items are on file and available in the City Clerk, room 202 at 200 North Street, New Haven, Connecticut, 06510. For accessibility related to accommodations, please call 203-946-7651B or 203-946-8582 TTY-TDD. Public comment testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. This meeting may be viewed on the New Haven Board of Alders YouTube page located here, https://www.youtube.com/channel/newczl3hb9xzwv9xzwv7xk3vqqatq. At this time, I will have my committee members introduce themselves. I am Anna Costa, the chair for CSEP, and to my right,
Alder South, Ward 17. Steve Winter, Ward 21. Alder Singh, Ward 5. International Smith, Ward 20.
welcome, members of the public. Just a reminder for everyone, we are not a mask-free zone, so please make sure you have your mask on at all times. I will now call up our city engineer to review items number 1, 2, and 3. I will also remind the public that anyone who comes and speaks before us must state their name and address for the record, and I will make the reminder periodically. The other thing is the microphones are a little tricky in the sense that all you have to do is hold it to your mouth, don't push any buttons, but you need to hold it pretty close to your face in order for everyone to hear you. Welcome, Mr. Zinn.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, members of the committee. Giovanni Zinn, City Engineer, 95 Soundview Terrace. I believe the first item before us is the project authorization letter for the Water Street Cycle Track project under the LoSiP program of the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Some of you may have been on the board, but you probably don't remember. Several years ago, we approved a master municipal agreement for construction with the Connecticut Department of Transportation, which covers all of the legalese, if you will, with all of our grant programs and construction programs with the state of Connecticut, DOT. And then for each project, we come before you to get approval for a project authorization letter, which is So the master municipal agreement stays the same for all projects, and the project authorization letter has the terms that are specific to the project, like how much money, what exactly the scope is, etc. So what is before you is for the Water Street cycle track, which is a short section of cycle track on Water Street, which is a state roadway, between the intersection of State Water and Union, and then the Olive Street, which is where the Farmington Canal line then picks up and goes all the way to Long Wharf, and then part of the cycle track that was built under the I-95 project goes all the way to the intersection of East and Water. So this is a gap. It's a gap in our infrastructure, and this project seeks to address that by constructing a almost entirely off-road section of a two-way shared use path along the southern edge of Water Street, over the bridge, the Water Street Bridge, over the rail yard that will be on street and separated with delineators due to the structural requirements of the bridge, but then it transitions back above the curb. This also connects to the west to the cycle track that was constructed under Downtown Crossing Phase 2, and will also connect to the north in the State Street project, and to the south as part of the Union Station project. So it's really a nexus for our off-street infrastructure here in the city. We are going towards final design. Once we do our final design submission, we will get the project authorization letter. We will execute that if the board approves it, and then we will be able to advertise for bid. So if everything goes according to plan, that would be probably later in the summer or the fall. With that, is there any questions? Be happy to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Min. Can you just go through the funding?
Yes, so the LOTSIP program is the Local Transportation Capital Improvement Program. It is paid for by state bond funds for transportation projects on roadways that have a functional classification of collector or hire. So it's not every local road, but rather sort of more of the main roads. This is what's funding a lot of our major corridor projects that I think pretty much all of you have been involved in at one point or another in your neighborhoods. It is the way the grant program is structured is that it's 100% municipal responsibility for design. Construction is funded 100% by the state of Connecticut.
Okay, so really the only cost to us is the time for design.
Correct.
And staff time.
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I will open up for questions from our committee members. Raise your hand if you have any questions. Alderman Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Zinn. Do you have drawings you could share with us? This is hard to understand. Yeah,
Right here.
yeah.
If we were on Zoom, this would be so much easier, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that Zoom is good at is sharing drawings, right? So if you can see this, this is the intersection, the crazy intersection of State. This is State Street North. This is the Knights of Columbus Museum here. Union Station is down this way. So we start right here and head east across the bridge. This is the section that's on the same level as the pavement. Then we go back up above the curb, head down. This is the Union. I'm trying to read this upside down. So, oh yeah, Union Street is right here, right? And then we're heading down on Water. And then this is the end of our new cycle track here, where it ties into what was built just a week or two ago by the Farmington Canal Line project.
This is Olive, right?
This is all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
So
this
it's just
intersection is
sections,
to
yes.
go down
And
towards.
brewery is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and what happens on the bridge? You said
The bridge, you ramp down to the pavement that's existing, delineators and a buffer zone, and then you go back.
delineators being like the plastic bollards. And what happens when it gets to Olive Street, would there be like a raised crossing or anything to tie into the?
Yeah, so, so Olive Street doesn't have any bike infrastructure. I would consider Sharrow's infrastructure. There are gonna be the green cat tracks across or elephant tracks, as we call them, but the green squares that go across. There are 2 receiving ramps that are separate from the pedestrian ramp that has the crosswalk. You know, I think eventually, and I'm sure you'll see this in the coming months, when State Street, if that gets constructed, the canal line will essentially go down State Street and then come across this new section and tie in over here, as opposed to the Olive Street section.
Okay, so then what happens at State Street? Will there be like a raised crossing or something to get you across Water Street and onto?
It is not a raised crossing across Water Street. It's a state roadway. So then we're still trying for our first one at Townsend. And this is getting a little far afield from what we have here, but the State Street North will become an emergency access only for motor vehicles probably. And that would be a shared pedestrian bike path.
Okay, so that's something we would have to work out with the state to try to actually connect this to in a more protective way to the what's.
No, I think it's gonna be a pretty good connection. We'll be safe.
But it would be, you'd come down onto the pavement. It wouldn't be raised.
No.
Okay.
No, it's a fairly tight area there. It may be that we cross at the intersection. We're still, you know, that's part of the State Street project, so.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions from any members? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Zen, you're up again.
Thank you.
Item number 2.
Item number 2, I believe, is the Clifton Street canoe launch, right? All right. So this is a $250,000 grant from the state ARP funds, which are separate and distinct from city ARP funds. The legislature, and big thank you to Representative Paolillo, among others, Senator Looney, to designate $250,000 for the Clifton Street canoe launch, which is at the bottom of Clifton Street. It has experienced significant amounts of erosion. And so this is to address those issues and repair it, and also provide ADA access. The state has asked us to build an ADA accessible canoe launch, which is going to be quite the challenge, but and this is what the funding is for. We will work with the management teams out there, the alder, and there's community members that are very active and engaged on that. We also have an adjacent coastal access easement that's in front of the restaurant. So there may be some improvements there for living shoreline techniques to inhibit erosion, and also provide a little more breathing room for the canoe launch. So we'll probably have a memorandum of understanding with the property owner about what's happening on that. So that's what's before you today. I do not have a design to share with you because we want to talk to the community and go forward with that. It's not going to change wildly in configuration from what you see there today, but rather be more functional and more accessible.
And just for clarification, I want to make it clear that this is state ARPA funds.
Correct.
And the amount of $250,000 is not what was designated to the municipalities.
Correct.
So the $250,000 is going towards this project that the state is giving us.
Correct. Through the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Okay, seeing none, item number 3.
Item number 3, thank you. All right, item number 3 is the State Diesel Emissions Reduction Act Program grant from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection in the amount of $238,215.34. to help defray the cost of an electric refuse vehicle. So this is a program that's designed to improve air quality by accelerating the adoption of cleaner vehicle technologies. In this case, an electric refuse truck. What we're proposing to purchase is actually by the same manufacturer that a lot of our refuse trucks are purchased from. So it's it's someone that our mechanics are familiar with. The grant is able to bring us down to essential cost parity with a conventionally powered vehicle. We're still finalizing the exact options on the truck, and also there's been some price changes since we started looking at this in December. But my letter, I did provide a sort of an apples to apples comparison here on the trucks at a certain point in time. The benefits that we have are, aside from the environmental ones, from a financial point of view, electricity is a lot less expensive as a transportation fuel, particularly now with diesel at, I suspect the city's probably paying between $5 and $6 a gallon. The retail, it's over that. The city obviously is a different tax situation. So it's probably at least 2 to 3 times, if not more or less, on a per mile basis for cost on an electric vehicle. They're also quieter, a lot less maintenance, simpler systems. And we think it's a very good opportunity to address our fleet that is most often in the neighborhoods. I know I get woken up every Friday by the trucks. They're very, very loud. So I'm very curious to see how much quieter this is. It certainly will be quieter. And I think it's something that also financially makes a lot of sense for the city. And with that, I will leave it at that if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Zinn. Can you just review the cost of one?
Right. So the cost of a vehicle, again, snapshot in time, the exact number at the final purchase isn't going to change. Was we quoted in late 2021 at $572,200 compared to a normal diesel unit at $321,900. The grant is for $238,215, which would result in a purchase price of $333,984, which is a 3.7% increase over conventional. However, at a 2 to 3 times less cost per mile, the payback period is under a year. To be honest with you, the exact difference between one and the other, it really deals with the exact options and how pricing fluctuates a little bit. So I would say for our purposes, it's essentially cost parity after the grant.
Okay, so when I look at the fiscal impact statement, the special funds that you mentioned are the 238, 215, 34, and then we are bonding the 333?
Correct, yeah, it's out of our vehicle purchase.
The vehicle capital budget. Okay, and we're looking at cost savings down the road regarding fuel versus.
Right, so the operational cost savings are significant. Fuel being one of them. The other, this is actually not the first sort of alternative refuse truck that we bought. In 2010, we bought a hydraulic hybrid truck, which doesn't use batteries or anything like that. It actually uses a fluid that goes from a high pressure reservoir and a low pressure reservoir. So it compresses the fluid when it breaks, and it actually, uses the fluid to start up. And since it starts and stops all the time, it actually is fairly efficient. How should I put this? The mechanics were perhaps slightly skeptical at the time, but they've actually really liked the truck. And I was just talking to them a few months ago about it. They think they might not have ever had to replace the brakes because the hybrid system actually with the regenerative braking takes all of the force, and the brakes have been lasting many, many times more. So there's a lot less maintenance there. For example, on that truck, and that is a similar type of regenerative principle that you would see in this vehicle as well. The electric vehicles we do have in the fleet, admittedly, are cars and things like that, but even those have far lower, maintenance, generally speaking, than a trash truck of this type, than a gasoline vehicle. So we think that will continue on. A lot of the other systems on the vehicle are similar to what you have now, like the hydraulics and things like that. Instead of running off of the main motor of the truck, they would be running off of an electric motor to drive that system. But otherwise, the systems are very similar to what you see today on the truck.
So for owners that have these trucks, what is the longevity of the battery life? And how long does it have to charge for, and how long will it last? It says 60 miles, if I heard that correctly, but.
Right, so so how long does anything last? And duty cycle is a fascinating topic, especially for a trash truck. So New York City has done a lot of studies on trash trucks and what their standard day is. I think our standard day for a trash truck is 37 miles. Theirs is 62 miles, I think, of route, plus I think it's 20 miles or something like that of going back and forth to the garage. So they're a substantially longer one. So this truck has been studied on their duty cycle and how often they run the hydraulics and all that, because that takes a fair amount of power. They would be able to charge overnight on an 80 amp charger. We anticipate on our duty cycle. They also are capable of fast charging, as that becomes something that is more common. Quite frankly, we'd rather do sort of the slower charging because that's gentler on the batteries. The age of the batteries, it's obviously hard to predict the future. I want to be very clear about that. But EV batteries are not new at this point. They've been, last decade, there's been a lot of EVs. It's the life of these trucks right now is like we're replacing the 2011 truck, so you're looking at a 10-year, 12-year lifespan, and that seems to be something that's within the envelope of what these of what batteries are able to take. I'd also note that battery life does decline over time, but there's enough battery capacity that you could see a 20-30% decline in the capacity while still making the duty cycle that we would need. So I think it's there's always risk whenever you try something that's new, or even when you do the same thing. Like if you buy a car that's a lemon, right? That certainly has happened. However, this isn't the bleeding edge of technology. I think, quite frankly, our hydraulic was probably more bleeding edge at the time when we bought it. That's turned out very well, and knock on wood, hopefully, that kind of thing continues. But yeah, I think that it will. Our trucks usually run into, they run hard, and there's a lot of hard use on them, and there are other things that often are the problem that kill them as opposed to the powertrain.
Other questions from the members?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Chair. Just have a couple of questions. Are there any barriers or challenges with repairs for a completely electric vehicle? And would any of that would have to be contracted out?
So well, first of all, we do contract out already some types of repairs, so that would not be a change in practice. There is a learning curve to it. I think in general, you see all the major automakers, for example, saying that in 10 years, we will no longer be making internal combustion motors. I think I don't want to speak for Jeff, Mr. Pescasquito, director of PPW. I think there's a recognition that there needs to be more training on electric vehicles for their staff. We're starting to see electric vehicles pop up in other places. That being said, they tend to have less maintenance, and particularly in the powertrain, and the stuff that I would anticipate this truck needing maintenance on, such as the hydraulics and things like that. That's the same type of thing that they've been using for many years. So, and then there is, the dealer, there's a warranty, there's support there to help for our mechanics.
Okay, Thanks.
Alderman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Zen has answered the question. I don't know if you
Thank you all. Alderman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Mr. Zinn. Have you reviewed the report the city did on vehicle electrification and the cost savings that they estimated for an electric refuse vehicle? I see in the table there, because over the first 5 years, they estimate that on maintenance, a gas-powered vehicle, you spend $158,000 versus an electric vehicle, which would be just $8,000. Is that roughly the scale of savings you think we'd see on maintenance?
I have seen that. I don't remember it all off the top of my head, so I can't really speak to the exact magnitude of it, and what goes into that 158,000 number. So I can't speak to it. I mean, it's certainly clear that electric vehicles, tend to have much lower maintenance, especially in the first parts of their life cycle, than other vehicles. We've certainly seen that in our small vehicle fleet. I've had an electric vehicle for 3 years that I had to do absolutely zero maintenance on, essentially. They're a lot simpler. They have a lot fewer moving parts. You're not trying to contain a bunch of explosions all the time, which is essentially what an internal combustion is. As to the exact dollar value.
But roughly the scale. Like
I think it's
order of
possible.
magnitude.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do any oil changes.
Right.
I just want to note the report also says that even without a grant, you'd be looking at $200,000 in savings over the 10-year life of the vehicle. Let's see. Do you know, I know this isn't really your bailiwick, but do you know what the relative age of the other vehicles in our refuse fleet are?
So this is the oldest one that we're replacing, which is a 2011 model year.
Okay.
So beyond that, I think they're fairly well spaced through that sort of 10 to 11 year period. They're expensive enough that you're not buying 5 of them in a particular year. Sure.
And how we found out about this grant opportunity and how we can try to take advantage of similar ones?
It's been kicking around for a while. It's a old EPA program. It typically went to fleets that had much higher per daily mileage. I think we actually got some DERA money very early on in my time at the city for particular filter retrofits on our trash fleet, and before those became mandated. We had someone working on sustainability initiatives that we hired under the contract, and she was the person that found the opportunity, did all the legwork for us, and was able to help us put this together. So it does pay off. Yes.
Thank you.
And I think that's what we're trying to for a different time, but under the sustainability types of the assistance we're asking for the ARP, for example. That's kind of this is what we're looking for.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, it could save the city a lot of money in the long run. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Zinn. Is our goal, as our normal fleet ages, is our goal to purchase more of these vehicles as we have to do replacements?
I think that's what we're looking at. I mean, it's also the stated goal of the board in the climate emergency resolution. I know the state of Connecticut, for example, CT Transit is only going to buy electric buses going forward. We're in a meeting, they were talking about that. It's I think what's good about a grant like this, an opportunity like this, it helps us get our feet wet without, having to stomach a $200,000 plus premium now. And I think it also helps buy down the cost of this for future years. I think we'll come to a point here in the next few years where that delta will be both a lot more comfortable with, and it'll be also a lot smaller, and we would go to that.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you all. Any further questions from the committee members? Okay, seeing none, I will now, ask for public testimony on just the 3 items we just heard. Mr. Zinn,
Thank you very much.
for all your information. You're always, thankfully well prepared. As a reminder to the public, again, I will be asking for public testimony on the 3 items we just heard about. So if anyone from the public would like to speak, once Mr. Zinn leaves the table, you're welcome to come. And as a reminder to the public, please hold your microphone close so everyone can hear you and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Good evening. Laura Khan, 54 Cleveland Road. I chair the New Haven Environmental Advisory Council. Thank you for letting me address you. I am very much in favor of an electric waste truck. We need less noise and less pollution and longer live vehicles and more sustainability. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on behalf of the 3 items that we just heard? Anyone from the public would like to speak on these 3 items? Okay, for a third time, anyone from the public that would like to speak on these 3 items? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our workshop. Okay, before we actually start the workshop, and I will be asking Mr. Crowley to come up and give his testimony. We have a sign-up sheet, and your name will be called in the order in which you signed up. If your name is not called, you will have an opportunity to still speak, even if your name is not on here. And if you haven't signed up, there may be another sheet in the back. Or our staff person, Ms. that has it. So if you have not signed up and would like to speak, please see Misty. Otherwise, just wait till the end and I'll call you up. Okay, Mr. Crowley.
Members, would you mind if I stood at the podium so I could face my constituents? Would you mind?
Actually, you are here to speak to us.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I
So,
just know that one of them is hard of hearing, so I don't know.
you know, make sure you hold the microphone very close.
Okay.
But as anyone who testifies, you are actually testifying to the committee members. But have a seat.
You can have that
Relax.
come up
And-
front. Tell that person to come up front.
If that person wants to come up, they can join.
Dave, can you hear me? Can you hear me again? Yeah.
He could come up and sit with you. We don't mind.
I think the other guys are okay.
They look young, they gotta be.
Okay. You want to see you can hear me better?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, and just as a reminder, state your name and address for.
This is not.
Yeah, just hold it close, don't push any button.
Personal. Thanks. My name is Mike Farley, 170 Cleveland Road in New Haven. I'm the owner and operator of Greater New Haven Landscaping, which I've operated for the last 42 years. I'm here with my son Casey, who after several years of playing minor league baseball, has decided to come back and take over the business. Along with one of my employees, an ex-Marine, Tom Scarpa, is also in the audience. There are a number of my peers there in the audience as well. This is David Parati from Perco. There's Lance from Avalanche Landscaping, Marco from Amazon Landscaping, Liam is here from the Connecticut Groundskeepers Association, and there may be other people in the audience that I wasn't made aware of, but they're here along with me to offer an opposing viewpoint, a different perspective on the use of gas-powered backpack loaders that was proposed, the proposed ban on them from the last meeting, which took place, I believe, a couple of months ago. So I figured first of all, I should explain why this is such an important item to us, and the fact that the gasoline backpack blower is one of the most versatile and flexible tools that we currently operate. Every single landscaping professional has backpack blowers in their fleet, and countless homeowners are also using this product. It's sold at Lowe's and Home Depot throughout not just Connecticut and not just the United States, but the world. The reason why this tool is as versatile as it is because it's one of the only tools that we use that is used pretty much every season of the year. In the springtime, it's used as a substitute to hand raking. In the summertime, it removes grass clippings off of the sidewalks, clumps of grass on the lawn, as well as cleans shrub trimmings after the shrubs are trimmed and they're in the ornamental beds. In the fall, obviously, it has leaf cleaning capabilities. And even in the winter with a light dusting of snow, it could be used to eliminate that as well as a substitute for a snow blower. As far as the amount of time that a backpack blower is used on a particular property, these are estimates, but just to give you an idea of how long they're in operation. In the spring, on a residential property, a backpack blower might be used between 15 minutes and an hour on one property. In the summertime on that same property, to use that tool would take about 1 or 2 minutes of using a backpack blower, and that is all. In the fall, because the backpack blower is used to clean many of the leaves, it takes about 15 minutes to an hour to complete the cleanup on a particular property. In the winter months, there's either no use at all, or if in the case you're using it to remove a small amount of snow, it may take up to 10 minutes. It's important to realize that all backpack blowers meet or exceed the standards set by the Environmental Protection Agency. And in case you're not aware of what they are involved in, the agency, the Environmental Protection Agency, is an agency of the federal government whose mission is to protect human and environmental health. It creates standards and laws promoting the health of individuals and the environment. I'd like to now maybe address some of the items that were presented to the board at that meeting a couple of months ago, where they were proposing to ban the leaf blower. One of the items that they brought up was that disturbing the leaf layer altogether is a bad thing. They proposed that there should be no leaf cleaning, that by cleaning the leaves, you're disturbing the insect layer and kicking up things within the lawn like fertilizer and dirt and feces. And they advocated that the best cleaning is no cleaning. I can't even address the absurdity of that notion that leaves should be left to lie where they are and there should be no cleaning within the city of New Haven. Not to mention that every single lawn that's out there would die, but there's a health issue involved, as well as the fact that if leaves are not cleaned and removed from the property, the drainage in the streets won't work, and you won't have the plumbing work, the sewers won't work. It's just an absurd notion. So that's an easy one for me to address and just say, I mean, you've got to be kidding. Another part of their presentation was about the noise factor. Okay, and I went into the city of New Haven's noise control ordinance. This is what I found. There will be an acceptance of, and this is a quote, noise from domestic power equipment, such as but not limited to power saws, grinders, lawn and garden tools, or similar devices operated, and this is something to be aware of, between the hours of 7 in the morning until 10 p.m. at night, Monday through Saturday, and 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday, provided noise discharge is reasonably muffled. That's in the ordinances of the city. I don't think that those hours are appropriate. I think you'd have to be pretty rude to start up power equipment at 7 in the morning and be running it at 10 o'clock at night. But according to what I found in the city ordinances, that's what their rules are. It's important to know that in the noise category, that there are noises based upon decibel levels, as most of you know. And just to give you an idea where the backpack blower sits in that scale of things, I'll run some other common noises by you so that you can get a feel. A whisper, for example, is commonly 30 decibels. A common conversation is 60 decibels. An average radio noise is 75 decibels. A vacuum cleaner is also 75 decibels. A lawnmower is 90. A hand drill is 100. A chainsaw is 110 decibels. An ambulance siren is 120. And a jackhammer is 130. It's important to note that the average backpack decibel level discharge is between 75 and 100 decibels. So it's in the same range as a vacuum cleaner and a hand drill. And these decibel levels are listed on the machines when you purchase them. It's also important to note that the decibel levels are for the operators of this equipment. And the operators all wear ear protection when they use backpack blowers. It's been researched that an operator of a machine given ear protection can withstand 100 decibels for 8 hours continuous without any damage to their hearing. The point that some neighbors complain that there's a decibel level that is annoying to them has to be understood that these neighbors who are complaining are several hundred feet away from the operation of the piece of equipment, and in no way the decibel level is as dangerous to them being that far away. It's important that you realize that there are some people that complain about children playing on a playground and they're making noise when they're screaming and laughing. And there are some people that complain about the music that they hear coming from the music festival or crowd noise for the athletic facilities at the Yale Bowl. I mean, there are going to be things that annoy people as far as noise goes, but I really do think that it's, to a degree, it's a fact of life, whether you're in New Haven or anywhere. I mean, I wake up in the morning at 6:30 because there's a bird who's making noise outside of my window and the bird wakes me up. But I don't open the window and scream at the bird, "Hey, shut up!" I let him make his noise, and it's annoying, but I try to go back to sleep. And if I can't, I deal with it. As far as emissions go, emissions is another important part of what the previous presentation argued was wrong with the backpack blowers. And I'm going to remind you that all of these machines are EPA approved. The Outdoor Power Equipment Institute, which is a governing body for all power equipment, issued this statement. Power equipment has been federally regulated for over 25 years. As a result of these regulations and advancements in small engine technology, many applications have reduced emissions as much as 90% compared to pre-regulatory days. The previous presenters brought up a survey, research that was done over a decade ago about a backpack blower emitting the same emissions as a vehicle that drove from here to Texas. Well, not only is that outdated, but it was done by a company that was there to promote the use of the Ford Raptor truck. So it was somewhat tainted in that delivery, and it's outdated by 11 years. If emissions are to be a factor in determining the future of a gas pack leaf blower, then what about chainsaws? How are chainsaws in any way different than a backpack blower? Because they're the same small engine, they make the same amount of noise, but yet we're not here discussing the banning of chainsaws. in the city of New Haven. And why aren't we discussing the banning of snow blowers in the city of New Haven, which also have the same small engines and also emit the same amount of noise, and lawnmowers for that matter, excuse me. And also another idea about the emissions. I just Googled how many registered motor vehicles there are in the state of Connecticut as far as emissions go. There are close to 3 million registered motor vehicles in the state of Connecticut. 20,000 are electric. So that means you do the math. I really doubt that the emissions that are coming out from the backpack blowers that I and my constituents use is really having an effect on the environment like some people would have you believe. All right, a couple other items and then I'll get to my closing that the previous presentation offered. They used a man named Dan Delventhal, who is a proponent of using electric machines and non-gas power machines down in maybe the Greenwich area of New Haven. Well, I don't know much about Dan Delventhal, but I did know that 15 years ago when I was out in the field working 10-hour days and putting my family through college, Dan Delventhal, who was the same age as me, is barefoot out in the field trying to put together 3 real mowers together and showing on a video that he's pushing them 10 feet while he's breaking a sweat that I can't even explain it. And he's trying to sell these as, yes, you got to put together a non-gas mower, and athletes love them. Well, the only athletes that I could see actually being able to even use the machine is if you're an offensive or defensive lineman. But other than that, it just didn't take place. He says that the smart money is on battery powered equipment. I have a list of the cost of battery powered equipment, which I purchased from this company that Dan Delventhal is an advocate for. Just to give you an idea of the difference, a standard backpack blower that we use, a gas powered backpack blower, averages between $500 and $600, maybe $700. A similar backpack blower with not as much power is $2,500. For a ride-on lawnmower, normally the guys that the type that we use are about an $8,000 to $11,000 machine. The cost for an electric powered machine is $30,000 from this green machine place, which Dan Delventhal is a part of. Or Toro is coming out with one that's $40,000. So it's hardly smart money when you're trying to raise a family or pay the bills. And the only people that are going to be able to afford this type of equipment are people like Yale University, who have an unlimited amount of endowment and budget that they could get involved with, and they could do that. But for the common man, it's just not going to happen. For a small business, for all of the guys who are here, it's just not going to happen. We'll get to that later. They brought up the fact that California is using this idea to eliminate gas-powered equipment. And something that I saw when I looked into that is that as of 2024, California plans on banning the sale of gas-powered equipment, but there's a clause in it. And the clause states that any gas equipment owned or purchased up to that point will be able to be used until it becomes unusable. So you can buy gas-powered equipment in California and use it through 2024. So it's kind of a misnomer that they're banning the use of that equipment. They're trying to phase it out. And finally, they brought up the Larchmont, New York community, who banned gas pack leaf blowers from use in their town. There's a big difference between Larchmont, New York, and New Haven, Connecticut. First of all, the properties in Larchmont, New York, start at $1 million. That's not New Haven. I was wondering how many residents of Larchmont, New York, are actually landscape contractors. And I wonder how many area contractors who work down that part of the state are actually intrigued with going into Larchmont to do work in Larchmont when they need a completely separate set of equipment than doing work in any of the other neighboring towns. So I'm wondering how Larchmont is gonna work out. That's what would happen in New Haven. If New Haven bans the use of certain equipment, every contractor who either lives in the city or works in the city would have to make a decision if they're going to continue to work in New Haven and have a specialized group of equipment that is only going to be used within the city. Or if they're going to say, you know what, it doesn't make sense to work in New Haven. I can go to Hammond, I can go to West Haven, I can go to Brantford, I can do work in East Haven. I don't need to have a specific, special set of equipment designed just for working in the city. It's gonna create a problem that I don't think many people are actually foreseeing. As far as the technology goes, most of the development that has been done in battery operated equipment is designed for the home. The guys that are here with me, along with the other hundreds of contractors that work in the city, do not use homeowner quality equipment because they're not meant to hold up to the everyday use that we put it up to. So the homeowner quality stuff is available at Home Depot, but as far as commercial stuff, there's a limited amount there. And just the cost difference is ridiculous right now. For example, a gas powered backpack blower between $500 and $600 is $2,500. I told you about the cost of the riding machine. It's just not there. And it's something that the technology is continuing to develop. And as it does, we will make adjustments. And the last thing I'll say is I'm just going to read this off and then I'll let some of my constituents speak. In the city of New Haven, Connecticut, there are hundreds of individuals who independently or as registered businesses perform a groundskeeping service. This effort supports not just the worker, but in most cases, the families of these blue-collar tradesmen. These people deserve the credit for making New Haven's neighborhoods clean and beautiful. To survive in this business is not easy. Increases in equipment costs, fuel, labor, and insurance challenge even the most determined men and women. That said, most of us do our best to persevere from one season to the next. One such way to achieve that goal is to purchase the most practical and usable equipment. The backpack leaf blower fits into that category without exception. By eliminating its use, the upkeep of New Haven's landmark properties, its parks, its schools, its residential neighborhoods will be adversely affected. In addition, the countless number of individuals relying on the use of this tool to provide a service will be similarly affected along with their dependent families. I urge the board to allow technology to develop. As it does, the contractors providing groundskeeping services will adapt accordingly, and the profession will continue to evolve. Continue to evolve in balancing the tried and true with any new developments as they become practical and cost effective.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley.
I don't know how many of the other people would choose to speak.
I will give everyone an opportunity.
I would like to urge one guy to speak in particular who he may feel uncomfortable because of his accent. But Marco is in charge of maintenance of all of the public schools throughout the city of New Haven. He has a huge responsibility. And I'd like to try to urge him to come up here and say what he feels. Okay? Thanks.
I just wanted to point out a few things. There has not been any legislation written yet. I also want to make it clear that there's also the Board of Alders legislative agenda to be more environmentally friendly for many reasons, from health to the environment. I think the goal of the board is not to ban once legislation has been developed, which is a whole nother step, but to phase it out. And I think that was discussed at the other public hearing. I also want to make it clear that we are not, as the Community Services Environmental Policy Committee, we are going to just read and file this item, just as we did with the Environmental Advisory Committee's request to hear about banning, the proposal to ban leaf blowers. So our goal tonight is to hear everyone. Our goal tonight is to possibly advance it to legislation for reasons that I mentioned. So I just want to make it clear that no voting is going to occur tonight other than to read and file this item, if that makes any sense. At this time, I will open it up to the public, unless my committee members would like to question or say anything. Alder?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Mr. Crowley for coming before us to testify. I found it really interesting, the comparisons of decibel noise between various different things he listed, like chainsaws, ambulance, jackhammers, and also the question that was raised about how the chainsaw differs from a backpack blower, a gas-powered backpack blower, or a snow blower, or a lawn mower. So it gives me a lot to think about. I appreciate this testimony.
Thank you, Alder. At this time, I will start the public testimony and call your name. So the first person on the list is Andrew Smith. Good evening, sir. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Smith, and I live at 80 Cleveland Road in New Haven. I want to thank the members of the City Services and the Environmental Policy Committee for hearing my testimony, and that of others who have returned this evening to advocate for the elimination of gas-powered leaf blowers eventually in New Haven. I also want to acknowledge how my neighbor, Mr. Frawley, has a thriving business in this field, and I respect the fact that he built that business over long years of hard work. But I think that, as with many businesses, they evolve, and they evolve with the many new technologies that are available. I first moved to Westville in 2004, and I immediately fell in love with the walkability of the area. Tree-lined streets, wide sidewalks, approachable neighbors and fellow citizens, and a child and pet-friendly culture are hallmarks of Westville, and indeed of most of New Haven. In the past 18 years, though, I've witnessed a growing trend that disrupts and distresses the many living beings who inhabit our neighborhood and the city. In the quest for manicured green lawns, an aesthetic value left over from England's colonization of this continent and destruction of indigenous peoples, institutions such as Yale, Southern, and many other sites of education and industry, along with individual and collective homeowners, continuously apply toxic pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and chemical fertilizers to their properties. Then they often mow these yards with great frequency to approximate the surface of a golf course. Then, and even with greater frequency, they blast the sidewalks, walkways, streets, and other boundaries with these gas-powered leaf blowers. We've heard some statistics about this already, but I just want to emphasize, and this is experiential and something that I've heard from many people, the loud and powerful two-stroke engines that power the leaf blowers create terrible and dangerous noise conditions and emit life-damaging hydrocarbon emissions, including volatile organic compounds. 1/3 of the fuel not combusting, but instead being expelled into the atmosphere. Also blown into the immediate atmosphere are all the poisons that have been applied to yards, along with animal feces, debris, and allergens, to be breathed in by everyone. That includes the elderly, the adults, the children, the pets, the birds, and all the other beings with whom we cohabit this city. These materials are linked to cardiac disease, cancer, birth defects, and asthma. As I walk my dogs through the neighborhood or ride my bike into town, I'm constantly shifting from one side of the street to another, taking different routes entirely to avoid the blasting of gas-powered leaf blowers and the debris they kick into the air. I think of the children and many others who can't make the same tactical maneuvers as I do, as they spot the yellow poison signs on sometimes every other yard and run into the powerful ear-splitting leaf blowers, jetting that poison along with the truly noxious exhaust into their lungs. I don't think we are going to break away from the colonial legacy of our lawn-keeping habits all too soon, although there has been progress in making habitat-friendly yards more popular and acceptable. And please witness, I can pass this around if you like, but the No Mow May movement, right, which has finally ended. And I can tell you that last night, I cut my grass in the front yard of my house. I have a small front yard and I let it grow. And because of this movement, which actually came out of England, right? You know, our former colonizer, and and all the destruction that they wreaked upon us, that I cut the grass and it looks fine. But when I was done, I could easily sweep the sidewalk in 5 minutes and get rid of all the trimmings, even though I hadn't mowed for all of May, right? So there's this movement that's happening and people are catching on that just having grass, just having these velvet yards is a problem. But if people want that, then they can have it. It's their yards, it's real estate value, and that's fine, right? But at least we can mandate a shift from gas-powered leaf blowers to clean up after all that cutting to quieter and more environmentally responsible electric leaf blowers. It would be a positive start to a healthier city. I am conscious, thank you. I am conscious of the tremendous industry that has grown through what is termed lawn care, although I dispute that phrasing. The industry employs many workers and can pay solid wages during the active season. At the same time, the workers are on the receiving end of all the toxic chemicals, fumes, and dangerous noise output that gas-powered leaf blowers produce. It's their lives that are being endangered the most. As an advocate for social and environmental justice in both my career and personal life, I have campaigned for secure jobs for residents of New Haven, jobs that pay a living wage and that promote healthy living and a safe city for all. We need to consider how even a small change like phasing out gas-powered leaf blowers can trigger better jobs and better lives. I hope you will move forward with plans to propose new regulations for this industry, regulations that look toward the development of industry and new possibilities for the future for good living wage jobs in New Haven. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next on the list is Gregory Saxisheim. I can't see what my glasses or what's that. And following Gregory is Elizabeth Morris. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greg Simmons, 159 Valley Street, New Haven, Connecticut. Thank you for hearing us tonight, hearing our concerns. I mean, I know that it's very easy for people to look for reasons why we should phase something out, but it's okay to, it's not cost effective. We can't sweep everybody's sidewalks. We cannot, we got people on the clocks. These gas powered machines that we use, they're efficient, they're effective, and just like any small business, we got people who pay by the hour. And what I want to say is, what about the person who's trying to raise their families, these
electric blowers, 40 pounds, you gotta wear those on your back. That's back damage to the human body. You have batteries that won't last 8 hours. There's no battery on this earth that they have right now that lasts 8 hours. A Tesla that gets charged all the time under extreme, conditions, air conditioning, highway miles, all that kind of stuff. You gotta charge it. So you know that a battery powered piece of equipment that you're going constantly from residential or commercial, it's not gonna last. So it's just not effective for a business. It is maybe effective for a residential homeowner, but just not. And I just want to say that you have to take all of that into effect. This is how we feed our families. We're also employing other people who feed their families. And I heard them say that, well, electric blowers will work and the gas blowers are blowing chemicals all over the place. Electric blowers are going to do the same thing. And if people want to have, pesticides or whatever it is that they want to have to manicure their lawn, the neighbor can't do anything about it. I mean, so all I want to say is that they take both sides into consideration. And battery is it's not good for businesses, small businesses, a lot of them. Thank you for hearing me. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for your attention to this issue. My name is Rebecca Morris. I've lived in New Haven. Oh, do I press the button?
No, don't press.
All right, okay.
Close to your mouth.
All right, thank you for your patience. My name is Rebecca Morris. My address is 227 Church Street, apartment 6F. I've lived in New Haven for more than 9 years. I came today to urge you to please ask the Board of Alders to work to phase out gas-powered leaf blowers in our city as soon as possible. As we heard at the overwhelming number of public testimonies at the first hearing on this issue, these machines are deafening, and they're really a major public health threat, and they're unnecessary. They're harming the quality of life of New Haven residents of all ages in significant ways. I testified during that first hearing and remain as concerned now, a few months later, as I was then. In addition to harming people, as we heard a reference to earlier tonight, I'd also like to make sure that you understand and are aware of the serious ways that these gas-powered leaf blowers are harming our city's wildlife and animals. These ways are not absurd, they're serious, and they have serious implications for the biodiversity crisis in which we find ourselves. Gas-powered leaf blowers remove topsoil, they destroy nests, they injure birds, they dislodge leaf litter that insects and many other living things depend on at the base of the food chain. Birds depend on sound to find mates, to avoid predators, and more. This extreme noise pollution, and it is extreme, can affect birds' reproduction. It can drive them away from noisy areas, result in changes in how they communicate, and cause these animals chronic stress and anxiety. And as we heard tonight, these leaf blowers aren't just being used in the fall to blow leaves, they're being used all year round. And so that stress is compounded throughout the calendar year. In addition to bringing wonder and joy to residents of all ages, New Haven's wildlife and birds provide our city with a multitude of important services that are easily overlooked, but we would be impoverished without them. They control pest populations, they pollinate plants, they disperse seeds, they prevent erosion, they move nutrients, they stimulate the economy, and they strengthen our city against climate change. These creatures and insects shouldn't be killed, injured, or robbed of their habitat for the sake of blowing around weeds with outdated equipment when there are affordable, healthier, and greener alternatives. Limiting and phasing out the use of gas-powered leaf blowers would also support and advance our city's 10-year comprehensive plan, which was issued 2015, which includes the goal of protecting and preserving the city's natural assets and environmentally sensitive areas. A few more points before I close. One is that we've heard from our neighbors tonight about the costs associated with this and the importance of making sure it's cost effective. But I'd like to make sure that it's considered that the costs of gas-powered leaf blowers are not only being paid by landscapers and by landscaping companies. The costs are significant and are being paid by the public and by, everyone who's being impacted by climate change, by the pollution that they're putting out. These are costs to our public health, to our quality of life as New Haven citizens, and to our environment. And those costs matter too. They're easy to overlook because they don't show up quickly on a balance sheet, but they're really significant. And to close, more than 100 US cities and towns now ban or limit the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. 100 is a lot. I very much hope New Haven is next. I know many other people do too, but if 100 other cities and towns can do this and can still have lawn care industries and have cleaner air and have better environment, so can we, and we should. And that's 100 times that different cities and towns have chosen to protect their environment and protect their constituents' health, and choose to prioritize that and count all of the costs involved. So the sooner that we can do that, the better. Thank you so much.
Madeline Kahn. And after Madeline is Laura.
Madeline Kahn, 54 Cleveland Road. I'm going to read a column from the New York Times, and then I'm going to talk a very little bit. Okay, it is called, closer. What
so
can
everyone
I
can hear
do to reduce the noise caused by suburban landscapers? I just moved from New York City to the suburbs and assumed I'd need time to adjust to the quiet. I was wrong. The noise from the leaf blowers and lawn mowers is constant and so loud. No sooner had a landscaping crew finished eviscerating the grass at one house than another arrives to mow the next. Does this go on all the time? How do people tolerate it? Are there no regulations about this kind of noise? And then the person writing the column answers, you have just discovered a reality about suburban life. It's not so quiet. Landscaping equipment, particularly the commercial sized machines used by professionals, is loud. Leaf blowing and lawn mowing season lasts from the early spring through late fall, taking a break in winter when the snowblowers come out. Suburbanites have been arguing about the issue for years, with some homeowners frustrated by the roar, which they say diminishes their quality of life and pollutes the environment, and others accepting the din as a necessary and intermittent practice for a tidy aesthetic. This spring, several municipalities around New York urged homeowners to limit the use of noisy landscaping equipment because so many people were home during the pandemic and perhaps experiencing the pervasiveness of this disruption for the first time. A number of towns in Westchester County, New York, for example, enacted temporary bans on leaf blowers so families could work and study in peace. Check to see if your local municipality has an ordinance in place, as your neighbors may be using the equipment at hours or during months that are prohibited. Check to see if any county, state, or health department rules about noise might apply. Jamie L. Banks, the founder of Quiet Communities, an advocacy organization, suggests keeping a record of when the noise occurs and videotaping or photographing the disruption as it happens. Record the noise levels at your property line with your smartphone using a sound level meter app. But before you go that route, introduce yourself to your neighbors and raise the issue with them. Explain how the noise disrupts your life. There are solutions to this, as some landscapers do use quieter equipment. If the rules in your community are relaxed, write letters to your elected officials requesting that they address the issue, especially if so many people continue to work and study from home. You could also look to see if any local environmental groups are already tackling the problem. This could be an opportunity to join their efforts. So writes Rhonda Kaysen. So I know we're not in New York, but I, as a resident of New Haven for a long time, have also been noticing this noise. And although I heard of the 2011 report about the Raptor was outdated, I found a more recent one that the California Air Resources Board says that the best-selling commercial leaf blower 1 hour of operation emits smog forming pollution comparable to driving a 2016 Toyota Camry about 1,100 miles, or approximately the distance from Los Angeles to Denver, which is still really bad, even if it's not as bad. And also, I have now been a teacher for the past year and have noticed that students get so distracted when there's vehicle noise or engine noise of any kind outside. So even if there are other kinds of noise that are also loud and annoying, that doesn't mean that we should still be reducing any kinds of outside loud consistent noise if possible, because it's very difficult for students to study and preschoolers to nap when these kinds of noises are occurring outside. Also, I am not usually in charge of lawn maintenance at my home, but in the past week, I raked the whole front lawn and the sidewalk with just a hand rake, and it took me 15 minutes. And I am not very big, and I am not very strong, and I do not do this very often, so I can't speak to the effectiveness of electric leaf blowers, but I would like to speak for the effectiveness of rakes. And that's all. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
After Laura Khan, there is Liam Over.
Laura Khan, 54 Cleveland Road. Hello again. I resubmitted my written testimony from the March 3rd, 2022 leaf blower hearing and respectfully request that it be considered along with tonight's testimony. I have a few more comments. Noise. The Environmental Advisory Council continues to hear from more people disturbed by the noise of gas-powered leaf blowers. The noise is almost continuous and it is hazardous to our health. And I want to note for all of you that all decibels are not equal. For instance, men's voices, which are deeper, carry much further. So do gas-powered leaf blower noises versus some other kinds of noises. I'm not fond of lawnmower or snow blower noises either. I mow my lawn with a real mower and I shovel the snow with a shovel. So I prefer quiet, but you should just take into account that decibels are not all equal, and depending upon the way the wind is blowing, they can carry further, and deeper noise carries a lot further. Mr. Frawley and his crew service a lawn just across the street from my house. I have submitted to you some photos of them in action, using 3 leaf blowers at once, which is not really advised. I have submitted the photos to you before now, but there are some copies. Their 3 leaf blowers make enough noise to penetrate my closed windows, which are not just one pane, but they're windows and storm windows. They carry to my office at the back of my house. I do not believe I should be forced to wear ear protection to go about my life in my house and to do the work of the Environmental Advisory Council, which is nearly a full-time job for me. By the way, Mr. Frawley's contention that he only uses a leaf blower for 1 to 2 minutes in the summer is not correct. I have gotten in the shower after he started, and he'll still be using them after I get out. And this is 3 leaf blowers at once. We're not talking 1, we're not talking 2, and I believe that we're not even supposed to use 3 leaf blowers at once. I have witnessed groundskeeping crews in other neighborhoods using multiple gas-powered leaf blowers at once also. Is New Haven prepared to issue every resident a pair of earmuffs like those worn by aircraft marshalers on the tarmac to protect us from hearing loss and the resulting heart and brain damage? I don't think so. Safety. Mr. Frawley and his crew do not follow safety guidelines from leaf blower use manuals I read, nor do many of the other leaf blower users I've seen. I copied page 2 from the Sears Craftsman manual, but while it doesn't list anything about ear protection, which I find absurd, it lists as the first thing, operator safety, always wear eye protection, always wear a respirator or face mask when working with the unit in dusty environments, always wear heavy long pants, boots, and gloves. I can assure you, I have seen many times Mr. Frawley's crew not wearing all of this protection. None of them were wearing masks the last time I saw them, and many other leaf blower users, including the ones at Yale, not using proper protection. So, by the way, it doesn't just affect them when they don't use protection, it's going to affect all of us because we all pay for their health insurance and ours. One of them's already hard of hearing, as you heard Mr. Frawley say. By the way, you should ask them how many leaf blowers these businesses throw out every year and what happens to those leaf blowers. You can't just throw them out with your household waste. They're motors that have to be disposed of properly and probably taken apart. They have grease, they have oil, they'll end up in landfills. Now I will talk a little bit about sustainability. The Connecticut Groundskeepers Association is a local part of a Washington, D.C. lobbying organization called the National Association of Landscape Professionals. They have just updated their website. I know this because I looked at it a couple of weeks ago when they were touting integrated pest management, which means pesticides, which is my pet peeve. And they are touting going from gas to electric and stewarding sustainability. Isn't that interesting? As Aaron Good testified on March the 3rd, he learned from a Spill representative at the Connecticut Flower Show that within 10 years, all leaf blowers will be electric. This won't be an option. So maybe these professionals should adapt to changing times, lead the way, and encourage their customers to adopt safe, healthy lawn and garden care. And by the way, just because something is approved by the EPA does not make it safe or healthy. The EPA hasn't banned Roundup, but they're involved in an $11 billion settlement with groundskeepers who will track cancer from their exposure to Roundup. And a lot of them have died, and a lot of them are dying. I know one personally, and it's not good to get non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and be dying for years and years from this. And I just want to say that I don't take these issues lightly. The Environmental Advisory Council believes in progress. We believe in New Haven businesses. We believe in having a bright future for everyone. But the only way we can do this is if we move ahead, not stay behind, and not use machines that were developed in the 1950s to spray chemicals that were repurposed in the 1970s to give people reasons to manufacture them. It doesn't make any sense. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. You know, I do want to thank you for your service. I know it's a volunteer position to be on the Environmental Advisory Council, and I know that we do look for guidance and your research to guide us as well, and listening to everyone. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sure you remember Chuck Elkins, the noise expert from the EPA who testified in March. Yeah, keep that in mind. Thanks so much.
Thank you. After him, there's Mary Woolsey. Good evening.
Liam, 5211 Black Rock Turnpike, Fairfield. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Liam Owen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Groundskeepers Association. The Connecticut Groundskeepers Association represents over 250 landscape contractors and supporting veterans, many of whom service New Haven. Landscaping professionals in the New Haven area work daily perform essential services for homes and businesses to maintain their landscapes and enhance safe green spaces. Electric equipment performance and runtime are common concerns for the landscape professionals and present challenges that must be overcome for widespread use. Unlike a homeowner that uses an electric powered leaf blower for less than an hour per week, the landscape industry is operating commercially using this equipment daily under rigorous conditions and for long durations. According to the National Association of Landscape Professionals, California State University of Fullerton compiled data in a study for the California Air Resources Board that found that contractors within their survey, less than 6% of equipment used by landscape contractors within their survey used for zero emissions. This compares with over 50% for residential homeowners. The low adoption rate by professionals is not due to unwillingness to use electric equipment, rather evidence that the equipment is insufficient and not technologically capable of being the exclusive equipment used by landscape contractors. Unfortunately, present zero emissions equipment falls short on performance, with the runtime and power being significantly different than their gas-powered counterparts. Our association is concerned about the economic impact on landscape contractors within regulation or gas-powered equipment. Our main concern is that any enacted ordinance is not punitive to our industry. According According to the National Association of Landscape Professionals, one popular manufacturer's electric vehicle retails for approximately $350 to $400. This is similar to the same manufacturer's gas powered unit. However, to use this electric vehicle for entire work, it requires the purchase of extra batteries and chargers, thus driving the upfront cost to exceed $3,000. There are significant upfront costs for landscapers, the majority of whom are sole proprietor businesses with no guarantee that they will recover the difference based on future energy costs, maintenance, and loss of efficiency. It is important to note that the landscape contractors only operate on a 10 to 15% profit margin for their services. Equipment ordinances push an industry that cannot find enough willing and capable employees to rely on less efficient equipment, and that takes more time and requires additional labor to perform the same task. While battery-powered landscape equipment is an adequate solution for many homeowners and small yards to maintain, this equipment is insufficient for high-volume professional use. It is important to note that our industry is not static, as in taking care of one location from a shop. The challenges of running electric equipment are compounded by the nature of our crews having to travel from site to site and town to town. Charging home lithium batteries creates fire, explosion, and hazmat risks, which are not present with the present gas-powered equipment. Our association is aware of the challenges of noise and pollution in a tight urban setting like Dayton. We are asking that any ordinance give our industry adequate time for the technology of zero emissions equipment to improve, and that any ordinance passed is not punitive for our members and our industry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Following Mary Woolsey is Casey Crowley.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Mary Woolsey.
If you could use the mic, sorry.
My name is Mary Woolsey. Can you
Just
hear me?
hold it a little closer so everyone can hear you.
My name is Mary Woolsey. I live at 4 St. Ronan Terrace in New Haven. In Ward 21. I wanted to address a couple of issues that have come up. I testified at the March hearing, and I submitted testimony for tonight's hearing as well. And I just wanted to clarify in response to Mr. Frawley's earlier testimony that the goal here is electrification. It's not to outlaw any kind of backpack leaf blower. It's to move from the gas powered to the electric leaf blower. And furthermore, regarding decibels, I would like to remind you of Chuck Elkin's testimony back in March about decibels and how it's on a logarithmic scale. So, you know, these are huge jumps when you're moving up 5 decibels, 10 decibels. And also Mr. Frawley said that these machines are maybe used, you know, an hour per property in the spring and an hour per property in the fall. That's a long time to be listening to a very loud noise. You know, maybe there's a power saw, but that power saw is not going for an hour. So just to be clear about that. But the other issue with gas-powered leaf blowers that Laura Kahn referred to is the low frequency element. And Mr. Elkins had talked about the research that he and others had requested of this engineering firm, which showed that it's not just the decibels, it's also the low frequency element. That means that, you know, as many as 90 homes in a residential neighborhood could be affected by the noise of gas-powered leaf blowers. So this is very different from what a battery-powered leaf blower would do, which would maybe affect 1 home if it was very quiet, or 9 homes or something like that. This is a lot of homes, and as our residential buildings get taller and you know things are more densely populated, you're talking about every apartment in an apartment building being affected by gas-powered leaf blowers being operated at the ground level. But I also wanted to rebut or refer to the testimony of Dan Delventhal, who was referred to by Mr. Frawley. He spoke at length to your committee in March. And he unfortunately was not able to be here tonight. He submitted some written testimony, but I wanted to read a little bit of that if I might. So to jump ahead here, he says that he's in favor of phasing out gas-powered equipment. He says that electric is practical and cost-effective. The American Green Zone Alliance, AGZA, has stated that it costs about 25 cents per hour to operate an electric blower versus about $1 per hour, and more now with increased gas prices for a gas blower. Lawn care providers often buy new blowers every few years anyhow and should transition to electric now. It costs less to own and operate in the long run. And he himself has an all-electric business. He says that our prices are at market or within 10 to 20% while we use all electric tools, not just electric leaf blowers. And he goes on to say, with 50% quieter electric blowers running at 765 cubic feet per minute, which is similar to many backpack gas leaf blowers, and 200 miles per hour with batteries that last 20 to 120 minutes available now, professional level electric blower and extra battery sets are affordable in the $1,200 range and capable. In our practice, 650 cubic feet per minute handheld blowers with 20-minute batteries have sufficed, and those cost around $300 with a battery and a charger. But now the 765 cubic feet per minute units have come out and the game has changed further. We have purchased a few of the 765 CFM units. They're just $330 with battery and charger. Purchasing 2 extra chargers and 3 extra batteries for an extra $1,000 and charging at our customers' sites allows us to use blowers all day, even in the fall. It costs about 20 cents to charge a battery, and all our customers are fine with that. We carry a couple of extra batteries as contingencies for when there is no outlet available to charge at. And I should interject here that Ford is now introducing the electric pickup truck, the F-150, which will have the feature where you can actually charge power equipment from your truck. And that is going to be a total game changer, I would imagine, for landscapers and others who use electric equipment. So you won't need to rely on homeowners. Based on the total cost of operation and benefits with fuel savings over time, I analyzed return on investment for choosing electric over gas and got 53%. The calculation includes 3 extra chargers and batteries in addition to those included with the blower for all-day blowing capacity. Electric leaf blowers also have a lifespan longer than gas leaf blowers, 5+ years versus 3 years. And then jumping ahead here, I just wanted to note that he said that using no gas blowers in our practice and being all electric has helped our business grow 30% annually for 9 years straight. We serve over 12 towns and people call us all the time seeking our services. With gas lawn care gear representing 10% of US air pollution and gas leaf blowers being the biggest offenders, an electric blower investment over gas offering 50% annual return on investment, a complete ban appears reasonable. Compelling even. And I don't know how much more time I have, but I just wanted to say that I think we're talking about New Haven here in particular. We're not talking about other cities. I checked in with Chuck Elkins about how the implementation of the DC ban, which started in January 1st of this year, how that was going. He said it was going very well, that the only issue had been that some landscapers were having problems with the supply chain issues, as we all are. And so that the enforcing agency was cutting them some slack and was not, was allowing them time to find the proper equipment. So that concludes my testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Casey, and following Casey is Steve Victor.
This is Frawley, 170 Cleveland Road. First off, I'd like to address the Laura Khan argument. I'm personally the one she's talking about across the street. I'd like to get it on the record that I do not give her any sort of permission to take pictures of me from her windows and submit it to you guys. If that's the case, I have videos on my phone that I would like to submit of the harassment that I personally deal with from Laura Khan. When I'm on Cleveland Road, I'm getting told, I get sworn at, I get told she's gonna call the cops on me. The harassment needs to stop. The exaggerations need to stop. I'm the one across the street, okay? The exaggeration that she showered, I'm blowing the sidewalks off. That's me. It takes me a minute for most of the spring and all of the summer. So that has to be the quickest shower in the world. In terms of other issues that were presented, with this Dan Deventhal, his business, our customers don't want us to add to their electrical bill. They don't want us to plug in our equipment and add to their monthly costs. No one does. No one up here would want that. We all use these backpack blowers on a daily basis, everyone over here. We're all healthy. So the notion that they're trying to look out for us from a health standpoint, that is not accurate. We are fine. I'm fine. They're all fine. My dad's been doing it for 42 years. He's fine. The idea that if we can eliminate all the noise, what world are we living in? There's noise everywhere. You walk down the street, you're good. Like, we can't eliminate all the noise. And the idea that, you know, the no mow mayor, not everyone wants their yard to be 3 feet high, their grass, and that's okay. If he wants his yard to be 3 feet high, that's his right. But everyone has a right in how they want their property to be maintained. Some people want it maintained at a higher level than others, and that's okay. People who are maintaining their properties at a different level don't knock on their door and say, excuse me, I need you to cut your grass now. It's not their right. It wouldn't be my right to do that. Something that hasn't been talked about yet in terms of this electrical transition is the cost to reconfigure everyone's garages, everyone's shops. We personally have one outlet. We would have to completely reconfigure our entire garage system. And the thing that I don't like to hear when we're talking about electrical is estimates. And this, no one knows what the future holds. It was talked about in one of the other presentations. The facts aren't there yet. The information's not there yet. Like my father said, and numerous other people have said, we have to let the technology develop at its own pace. If it takes 5 years, if it takes 10 years, no one knows. But we have to allow technology to develop at its own pace. I think 10 years ago what a cell phone was compared to now. It's mind-boggling. Something else I want to address. I'm kind of a newer generation, soon-to-be owner. I am not in any way, shape, or form stuck in like old ways. I constantly rummage through the internet to find more efficient equipment. What's new? What can be helpful at all? The simple fact is, I've been looking at electrical equipment for 5 years. It's just not there yet. Can it be? Yes. When do we know when? Absolutely not. But it's just not there yet. Something else I thought about, and this was addressed in the previous meeting, in terms of how this would be policed. I remember one of the other aldermen said, if we ban these backpacks, are they going to have police officers roaming the streets, finding people? We work in an area where a large contingency is against this. So in my opinion, I think that's going to create a lot of enemies in the industry, because if our neighbors are reporting us for having gas-powered leaf blowers, I think it eliminates now the idea of me seeing some of those guys and giving them a wave, or if they need a helping hand, something went wrong, helping them out. My first thought process is now going to be, what equipment do they have on their trailer? Because if I can't have it, I don't want them to have it. So it's going to create major tension within the industry. In terms of something else, and with the negative aspects of this, it's no secret that there's a battery life, and it's not nearly as long as what gas-powered equipment is.
you're literally putting a limit on how much we can work over the course of a day. With how long the batteries. You can't expect us to just say, oh, go buy 15 extra batteries. It's not cost efficient whatsoever. They're also not as powerful as numerous people have said, which is going to make us work harder. It's already a hard industry to work in. You know, if our equipment is not as efficient, it's going to make it a grueling task to just get through every day. The high cost of the equipment have been addressed. Like I just mentioned previously, the cost to reconfigure the garage systems, the electrical systems. No one talks about how much a monthly electrical bill is going to cost. Everyone just says, yeah, you're going to save money on gas, but do we know how much it's going to cost on the electric side on a monthly rate? We don't know that. Everyone says these are estimates. If they're estimates, it means it's not there yet. And that's okay. But it's fine that it's not there yet, but we can't force it onto people if the technology hasn't developed enough. With that being said, I thank you guys for listening to all of us, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for your testimony. Steve Victor, following Steve will be Suzanne Roberts. Good evening.
Is this the microphone?
Yes. Just hold it close and state your name and address for the record and proceed with your testimony. Oh, you had it right.
My name is Stephen Victor. I live at 166 East Rock Road. We have lived there for 43 years. And in the last 5 to 10 years, the noise of gas-powered leaf blowers has been intolerable. Inside our house and out, at the times of day that we most want to be there, we can't. We can't be outside on our deck looking over our backyard because of the noise of leaf blowers. It's time not to get rid of them instantly, but to phase them out. We're not asking for no noise. We're asking for just less noise. With respect to Mr. Frawley's comment that the technology isn't there yet, a regulation that would phase out the use of gas-powered leaf blowers and the two-cycle gas-powered, so they're very polluting. I would encourage the development of new electrical technologies. If there is a phase out for the use of these two-cycle gas-powered blowers, there will be time for the industry to catch up. Cities in 15 states have already banned or are phasing out gas-powered leaf blowers. I think New Haven should be among them. Thank you very much.
Following Suzanne will be Iris Kaminsky.
Right up, have a seat.
My name is, wait a minute.
Yes, use the microphone, just hold it, just speak right into it.
Okay, I wasn't really thinking when I walked in here and put my name on the list that I was going to speak. But I also thought I might as well go ahead.
Just state your name and address.
Oh, right, my name is Suzanne Roberts. I live like the guy before me at 166 East Rock Road in New Haven. I just think it's really important to focus on a broad range of effects of the use, the continued and exploding use of two-cycle engines, gas engines for leaf blowing and snow blowing and all these other things. I'm concerned about air pollution. I don't think that everybody has a right to pollute. We're trying so hard in this country to stop doing that. While I agree that the episode of somebody driving from Texas to Alaska or the other way was 10 years old, there's a lot of other things that have been said that are also dated. And I think it's better to look forward than backward. So air pollution is the first thing I would just notice, and people can review what's been said. These engines are really very loud. And I very much appreciated the point that all decibels are not equal. And the low frequency is a problem. I was impressed with the fact that children become agitated and cannot work at school when there's a lot of noise of this sort. Another point is that noise degrades the quality of life. By impairing communication, people can't talk to each other. They can't hear each other, which is at our age difficult enough. So I'm very concerned about these things, and I do think we have to think about a broad range of things, not just gas. The health risks are considerable. The chemicals and the noise. Leaf blowers don't just blow the leaves into the trash. They stir up dust, including, as I read more about this, pollen, mold, animal species. What a horrible idea. And heavy metals and chemicals from herbicides and pesticides. And if you're not wearing a mask, even if you are, it's going to get to you. So there's just an increased risk of lung cancer and possibly breast cancer. There's a physician down in Greenwich Hospital who believes that gas-powered engines, including cars and whatnot, are the reason that Connecticut is the #1 state in the country in incidences of breast cancer. That's pretty far-reaching and pretty alarming. Okay, fine. Premature birth, other life-threatening allergies, asthma, cardiovascular disease, blah, blah, blah. Finally, environmental damages. I do think that leaf blowers are invasive. They disturb the natural world. Pesticides kill birds and insects. Blower winds stress plants, cause dehydration. Now, we're not having such a great rainy season this summer. Overall, the growth of natural things is slowed down. Leaf blowers are not just noisy, they deprive flowers and shrubs and trees of life-giving mulch. Blowing all the leaves away is really a terrible idea. They have a function in our system, in nature, and they disturb everybody and everything. People have spoken to the number of bans there are elsewhere. And just because we're not California, we can do something about it. We can work to, over time, eliminate or in a reasonable way to eliminate the use of these machines, particularly since much of the evidence shows that they are not all that expensive. It's true, you have to retool things, but if you can get a car that enables you, or some kind of vehicle that will enable you to recharge your batteries, or you can stay on somebody's house for days and hours without going away. And also, remember raking? Somebody said sweeping is good. You can sweep up all the things. You don't have to blow every sidewalk to look as pure as the driven snow. It's just silly. You can rake, you can sweep. Bodies are made for other things than hauling backpacks around. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for listening, and maybe all kind of think together and try and agree about things and work in a more congenial way, just because we have strong feelings one way or the other. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Iris Kaminsky, and then following Iris will be Colin Untitled. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Iris Kaminsky. I live in 245 Henley Avenue. And I'm going to read a letter that was written by Bonnie Hall, who lives 42 years in Westville in my neighborhood. And then I have, at the first time, I have a couple more comments if there will be time. So this is from May 31, 2022. The noise level of gas-powered leaf blowers in my neighborhood ranges from annoying to intolerable. Gas-powered leaf blowers are so loud that earmuffs are often necessary just to be in my yard and even in my house. Multiple blowers are often in use. On a recent Friday afternoon, the noise continued virtually nonstop for about 5 hours. I was expecting dinner around 6 p.m., but postponed it because the noise continued until well after 7 p.m. Saturday morning provided no respite because the gas-powered leaf blowers were working on other nearby lawns. Since the pandemic began, socializing outside on the deck has been one of the few ways to get together with friends. However, these events have been interrupted on several occasions by gas-powered leaf blowers, so loud that conversations were impossible. The many ways gas-powered leaf blowers harm our environment, health, and overall quality of life in New Haven has been already thoroughly described in public testimony submitted by other board and alder city services and environmental policy committee. I agree with people who judge gas-powered leaf blowers to be an urgent problem that calls for changes in landscaping practices. What more needs to be said to convince our city leaders to mandate transitioning to more environmentally friendly and people-friendly lawn care as soon as possible? New Haven is blessed with world-class institutions in science, technology, and medicine, to name a few areas relevant to solving gas-powered leaf problem. How is that, despite these resources, we lag behind other cities in implementing gas-powered leaf blower solutions, and our city becomes less livable every year? It's time to get past discussions about whether to ban gas-powered leaf blowers and move on to discussions about how. How can we expeditiously retire obsolete gas-powered leaf blowers in ways that minimize disruptions for landscapers? Can change be facilitated through equipment exchanges, tax rebates, or other programs? In the long run, state-of-art leaf blowers will be less expensive to run, but in the meantime, can the city create measures to ease the transition? So this is from Bonnie Holly, who lives 42 years in New Haven. So I just wanted to, if there's time for some statistics.
Due to time and others that are,
Okay.
if you could be brief and maybe summarize. Have you submitted testimony?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Okay. So just quickly, this is from an article from 2011. So there's just statistics about from the National Gardening Association from 2008 that found that the United States has about 6 million leaf blowers that were purchased, and it's going to expand. So the author here says this profusion of leaf blowers does not come without environmental and social costs. So the environmental cost that I'm referring to is was quoted by the EPA in 1997. So as people across the United States refuel their leaf blowers and lawnmowers, they slope approximately 17 million gallons of gasoline onto the ground each summer. Gas that seeps into our water we drink and evaporates into the air we breathe. To put that number in perspective, and this is annual, the Exxon Valdez Oil Spill in 1989 dumped 10.9 million gallons of oil of Prodhu Bay crude into Prince William Sound, Alaska. And this is from National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So just as an environmental being coastal, this goes into our oceans and then and it pollutes our oceans, and there's more to come. But thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Good evening. My name is Colin Taya. I live at 227 Church Street, just off the street here. And I'm here this evening to speak briefly in support of regulation of gas-powered leaf blowers. I'd like to remind the committee some of the comments that I made in my written testimony, which I submitted as well. I will not summarize that at length, but I want to state first that these gas-powered leaf blowers are the equivalent of secondhand smoke when it comes to lawn care. We've heard testimony this evening that they are incredibly polluting, both chemically as well as in terms of noise level. According to the EPA, they are a prevalent source of toxic and carcinogenic emissions. Now, we heard some testimony earlier about the decibel level of these machines compared to the decibel level of other common machines. I'd like to remind you that this is a logarithmic scale. What that means is that a 10 decibel increase is a 10-time increase in sound level. A 20 decibel increase is a 100-fold increase in sound level. So we heard testimony that a vacuum cleaner, for example, is perhaps 75 decibels in sound level. A leaf blower might be 95 to 105 decibels. So a 95 decibel sound level is 100 times louder than that vacuum cleaner at 75. If it's in fact 105 decibel sound level of the leaf blower, that's a 1,000-fold increase in sound level compared to the vacuum cleaner. This is confusing and complex. I don't know why the decibel system works that way. That's how it works. You need to keep that in mind when you're comparing these leaf blowers to other common household or yard items. We also heard testimony today referring to the Outdoor Power Equipment Institute, speaking to the manner in which these gas-powered leaf blowers have been, attempts have been made to make them more environmentally friendly. I'd like to remind the committee that institute, the Outdoor Power Equipment Institute, is a trade group. According to the website, they, quote, advocate for the outdoor power equipment industry. So I think that testimony should be taken with a grain of salt. And finally, we have heard a lot of testimony this evening that the technology is not quite there. We need to wait until it's perhaps more advanced. And respectfully, I'd like to remind the committee that the Board of Alders did unanimously declare a climate emergency. I think it's very important that we act like that. I know the committee takes that very seriously. With respect to regulations encouraging more environmentally friendly equipment, I think that the evidence exists that is the case. The auto industry protested for years they would never be able to comply with regulations requiring more gas efficient vehicles. The regulations have been passed, and lo and behold, the catalytic converter was invented, and we have seen increases in the efficiency of gas-powered vehicles and, of course, electric vehicles as well. So, in conclusion, there is a climate emergency. The Board of Alders has said so, and I asked the committee to endeavor to act like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? That concludes our list. If there's anyone else from the public, please raise your hand.
That's what let's keep it. My name is Michael Zanelli, 5 Gibson Drive, Eastern Haven, Connecticut. What I see these folks saying is that why you send weapons to Ukraine? You're supposed to send gift bags. They're dangerous. They kill a lot more people, I guess. I don't know. Very strange. Okay. New Haven is a city of different
say people. West Rock, $700,000 home. East Rock, $1 million. Some areas, 200,000. Some areas, 100,000. I have a customer that expended 80,000 in landscape. Woodbridge. I have a customer in New Haven. They can only afford one cut a month. A backpack blower. I know I don't like to use them, but the only thing that you have today that can grow leaves efficient. They are powerful, 4 times more powerful than the electric ones, the power, what reason? Okay, they cost 5 times less. Why the EV cars did not take off 5 years ago? Because their range was 100 miles. Nobody wants to buy. You don't want to buy one. Nobody wants to buy. The backpacks, the battery powers is like that now. I'm waiting for 2 years for my lightning truck. I'm in the list to get. I love to have one. Do you think I want to go every month and spend $10,000 in gas? I don't. But I cannot do my job. And my customers in New Haven, 50% cannot afford to pay the prices that I'm going to charge them if you ban. Westview, they can afford. They have customers there. East Rock, they have customers, doctors, they can afford. But when you go to, say, what section, like Grove Street or Dixwell, they can afford. Why there is $1 million home in East Rock? Because the grass are tall? It's because there is leaves? Or it's because the landscape is manicured? This is the questions that you guys need to ask. And these people, I'm sorry, they live in the partisans. I want to see their palms, how much colors they have. Because I also saw they are very nice, neat, clean. I wake up 7 in the morning. I didn't have lunch. I didn't have dinner yet. That's my life. I treated my customer. I just spoke with one customer that has a $2 million home in Woodbridge. I treated him like a customer that has a $150 home in New Haven. How I can charge my average price for a spring cleaner, a fall cleanup in New Haven is $300. Okay. With the power backpack, I can do in an hour. With the leaf backpacks, I even don't know how I'm gonna charge the batteries. That is the first question I gotta make in my hand, in my head. You know what I mean? Like I don't know where they live, and if they ever did the landscape, or if they ever work hard, because some folks there, their hands are so clean and so nice that I think they never touch the earth. And I agree with them. I wish the technology is there, but it's not there. Now we are selling EV cars with $300 range. Why? It's because now the customers want. Why I'm buying the Lightning? It's because it's a $300 range. It's not 100. You know what I mean? I don't know. But they are living in a different world. I don't know what world. Only imagine you having with the older houses have leaves everywhere. Nobody clean. It's going to be a beautiful city. Everybody wants to move in. The city is stopping me from mowing the lawn because my PO was loud. Okay. Some schools now that I take care is the grass there high. Do you think they are calling the boards to say, "Oh, nice! Look how high it is, so beautiful." I saw kids on Truman play football on Memorial Day on grass that high. Can you play? You can't. You can't. But they are playing there. I could not cut it down because they said they didn't have enough money. I was shy of it because how the kids can play like that. And the Truman, if you go there, the field is like that high. Do you think people is going to call and say, Yeah, even more higher. I don't know why these people come with these ideas, but maybe we're supposed to send backpacks to Ukraine because then the war is going to be over because they are so destructive. I never see. I don't know how I can survive and my workers. And a backpack compared to a gasoline, okay, it weighs twice more. I don't know if my workers can handle. Okay, work the whole day in the fall. Fall, spring is different from the summer. Like Mr. Foley said, okay, in the summer, we cut it down in 2 minutes, it's done. In 2 minutes, it's done, like a block. Okay, in the fall, yes, it's taking longer. We work about 1 or 2 hours, depends the house. You know what I mean? Like, do you think my guys enjoying that? They don't. But somebody needs to do. How many people wants to be a farmer? No many. You know what I mean? But there's something that you can, there's no way to do. And I don't know, like maybe 5 years, 10 years, maybe yes. Give it time, the technology is gonna come, like other people said, like is the iPhone, there used to be like a flip phone, now they are like a mini computers. Give it time, it's gonna be there. And when it comes, we're gonna buy. Because I don't wanna go every day to the gas station and spend $300 in gas, I don't. Do you think I'm enjoying? I don't. But there's nothing else that I can provide to my customers that I can give a reasonable bill for they can afford. There's people that makes $150,000. There's people that make $20,000. You need to accommodate all in the real world. It's not only people that live in East Rock and the West View. That's my point. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
Okay, can you just, fill in the application?
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Yes, speaking to my state name and address for the record.
My name is Florestine Taylor. I live at 100 York Street, University Tower in New Haven, Connecticut. I also serve on the EAC commission. I plan to sit quiet, but I couldn't sit quiet. I hear what the gentleman is saying. I see where their company is coming from. I was hired at Science Park to develop an employment center. And the issue was to develop OSHA training certificates so that people could go into the work industry. We saw changes coming in New Haven with some of the gun factories, and people weren't prepared, so they got left behind. This is an opportunity where people don't have to get left behind if they would take $1 less or $2 home as a company and get their employees trained, updated, and also buy buy the necessary equipment because the change is coming. I mean, we see the EV cars out there, the cost will be reduced and society is changing. We might not say exactly when the electric blowers will completely take over, but they are on. They will be one day what will be used. Meanwhile, people had an opportunity to make the change, and for economic reasons, as they stated, they didn't want to make the change. And then when the change happens, meanwhile, their people will be left behind. So in looking into the future and being visionary, and not only talking about the environment, because I live at University Towers and we're working on the people, our staff, and these people are often some people of color, lower income, who haven't had certain professional training. Yes, it's a good job, but why are they dying at a younger age than other people who have these jobs where they're polluting themselves, they're polluting the environment, the noise. I woke up one morning, I couldn't believe it, and that's when I went downstairs to property man. I said, this has got to go. It is 8 o'clock in the morning and we can't sleep. So then, and I'm on the 5th floor, and the gentleman on the top floor, people are complaining. And all I'm saying is that I thoroughly understand the economy and who it will impact the most. But I'm also concerned about their health, their well-being, and their future. And the issue is, like most capitalistic societies, take $1 a penny less now and prepare for your future. Or if you care for your workers, prepare for your workers who are impacting the environment as well as you are. So make the change, if that overnight, but make the change, make sure it's in the process of becoming to use the electric leaf blowers, because they are noisy, they are hazardous, and it's not like you don't have an alternative. There's an alternative to the leaf blower, which is the electric blower. Change is here. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this item? For a third time, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one?
Madam Chair, I move to close the public portion.
Second.
Okay, so motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on closing the public portion? Seeing none, all in favor of closing the public portion of this meeting, say yea.
Yay.
Any nays? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Public portion is closed. Just so you know, we still are conducting business here, so it would be appreciated if people leave quietly if you don't intend to stay. Thank you. If folks are wanting to submit testimony, you can ask our staff secretary to give you the information. Thank you, public, for being here this evening and for your patience. Committee members, do I hear a motion to move item one?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to move item 1.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on item number 1, dealing with the water recycle wrap? Alderman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is, fundamentally a good thing. We should support it. That said, I think process-wise, it'd be really helpful to get drawings for things like this ahead of time to help us visualize what the actual proposal is. And I am concerned that the connection, at least on the drawing board right now, to the bike path that'll come down from the Farmington Canal sounds very weak. Just to have a button you press and some flashing lights. We know how people drive in this town, and we need to be serious about that. I think we need something physical that's gonna slow folks down like a raised crossing. Because this will be a main bike path that people will be taking from Handon down through New Haven. Anybody who lives, goes through the Alder from the 20th ward, my ward, many other wards, all the way to the Long Wharf. And we want to make sure people feel safe the whole way through. But it seems like a good thing. I think we should definitely, allow them to move forward with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion from committee members? I'll just add, it sounded like some of the challenges with what Alderman just mentioned is that it's a state road, so it sounds like we might need to go to the state for some support in delivering some of your requests. And they are legitimate requests. Any other discussion? Okay, let's go for a vote. All in favor of item number 1, please say yea.
Yay.
Any nays? Abstentions? The yeas have it, motion passes. Item number 1 passes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion on item number 2.
Second.
The item number 2 has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on item number 2? Alderman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand this was a part of a state article, and I just want to note for the record, I found it just interesting that the justification and classification of the funds came out of basically the social determinants of health in consideration of a underserved community, and that the justification being this canoe launch would encourage activity for these underserved people. I don't really see the connection there. I'd be interested in learning how many of these folks in this disparately impacted community actually utilize this canoe launch, but I just wanted to know that for the record, and it's still in support.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Alderman Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that is an important question to raise, and I would say probably no one uses it right now simply because of the terrifically bad shape it's in. Like you wouldn't, I've been there once and you wouldn't really be able to tell that it's much different from what's around it. It just sort of like disappears into the Mill River. So I think it would be difficult to, yeah, it's kind of thing where like, it's so broken right now, we couldn't really know who's using it. I think if it was cleaned up, I think it is, right in Fairhaven. It's right near or it's right over the bridge from Fairhaven. So it would be accessible for folks on both sides of the river, which is nice. Still leaves open the question of like, well, are we gonna have watercrafts there that people can rent at an affordable price? There's still the issue of like, who actually gets to use it? I think that's a fair concern. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Winter. Any further discussion? I would echo my two colleagues have mentioned, and once this is fixed, we should be encouraging usage of this area and find ways to get more folks out there, affordable ways, obviously, to get folks out there. Any other discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in support of this. Like my colleague said, it's right now it's not friendly and it's not usable, and I think it's a good start where we can get this going, so we can encourage our youth and encourage more active, use of that facility in terms of canoeing and kayaking and so forth. There's a lot of people that doesn't belong to a club, but they could have a kayak and go there. And with this being there, I think we can encourage our youngsters to find some way to keep this going. So I'm in support of this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of item number 2, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? The ayes have it. The motion passes.
Madam Chair, make a motion to move item number 3.
Second.
Item has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on item number 3 regarding the electric refuse vehicle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Mr. Zinn pointed out in his testimony, the board has adopted this goal to electrify our city buildings and our vehicle fleet by 2030. I think this is a really important step towards that goal. And I think it's one that's going to deliver a lot of co-benefits, particularly around noise. I think we've all been woken up in the morning by the brakes screeching on the trash truck. And you can't put a price on that. It is terrible. It's terrible. I wake up and I know it's Tuesday because I hear it. So we've all experienced that. You can put a price on the cost savings here though. And this committee and the board asked for an EV report to come out from the CAO's office, which I have a copy of it if folks haven't seen it. But one of the things that they point out is even if we weren't getting the state grant, because of the dramatic reduction in maintenance costs, it would still save money over the 10-year life of the vehicle. And that report was done last year before gas prices more than doubled. So I think that it's a really important thing for our city finances. With the grant, the report estimated that this vehicle will save us $800,000 over 10 years. So that's $80,000 a year, which we can put into other things, which we all know we have huge pressing needs. So all of that, plus, it's going to help us with our air quality. These are old diesel vehicles that are making rounds through every neighborhood, almost every day of the week, and contributing to all the issues that we know all too well, particularly asthma. So definitely excited that we're doing this and would recommend we approve it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am in agreement with my colleague. I don't want to be redundant, but I'm in favor of this item, and it's a step in the right direction that the department is looking toward the future to electrify their fleet, and hopefully, this would be a step in the right direction, so we get some data from this vehicle here and see where the cost saving is going, and in terms of pollution and air quality, all those become zero with this one vehicle. And if we could get more funding that we can purchase more vehicle, I think it would be a win-win for the city, and I'm in full support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any further discussion? Go for a vote. All in favor of this item, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? The item carries.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to read and file item number 4.
Second.
Okay, the item has been moved and seconded, and before we actually have a discussion, I just want to note for the record that we did receive written testimony from the following individuals: Dan Dellenbaum, Aaron Helfand, Bonnie Cole, Colin Taya, Chuck Elkins, Jean Duvino, Jesse Cohen, Laura Khan, Lord Trustman, Maria Fernando, Mary Woolsey, Natalie Cole, Paula Rosenstein, Rebecca Weiner, Stanley Keller, and Rebecca Morris, and those are all in favor of taking out gas-powered leak blowers. And with that, the motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Alderman Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I would thank the chair and the committee, for being very generous in our time and hearing this a second time. I think that it is a complicated issue in some ways. There is a constituency that is going to be, well, there are different constituencies that are deeply affected in very different ways. All that having been said, I think some of the things that stuck out to me from this hearing is that there are many other cities that are taking this approach, and the state of California. So it is not like this is some impossible pie in the sky thing. This is something that we heard 15 different states, over 100 different cities are taking this approach. And I think many of them probably don't have the same health and equity challenges that we do here. It's really important to note that although the comparison was made between the number of vehicles on the road and the number of leaf blowers, they're totally different engines. These are engines where you're mixing gasoline and what was the other thing? And oil right in the engine. So a lot of this stuff is getting sent right out. It's not even being burned. And that's what makes it such an enormously polluting activity. And that's pollution that all of us bear. And you just mentioned asthma. We have the 11th worst asthma rate in the entire United States. We need to be doing more about it. We can't just ignore it and keep repeating that statistic. Some of the other health issues that come with this are cardiac issues, cancer, and birth defects. So we need to acknowledge that these are real. We may not always see or smell those emissions, but they're real, and they're causing people real health issues, including the hearing loss that some of the operators of this equipment experience. So I think that's important. And the other thing that stuck out to me is the sound here. It is extraordinarily loud, and it's also the pitch of it that matters in terms of how it carries and why you hear it, even if you're inside your home. So it's incredibly invasive to neighbors for that reason. All that having been said, I think there were concerns about, well, how long will the batteries run? How much will they cost? We heard a range of cost estimates on the low end being roughly the same as what the gas powered ones were, up to a high end, as somebody said, $2,500 or $3,000. I'd be curious to know how they got to that high an estimate. But we know that I think it is clear under most of the estimates that there would be a cost increase. And For me, that speaks to the need to look at a phase out approach where you can give people time to figure out how they're going to adjust their equipment and phase out the existing equipment that they have. I think that's really important. It wouldn't feel fair to me to just spring this on someone. We need to give them, a period of years to figure that out. So, yeah, I think that kind of sums up my takeaways from tonight. I appreciate you all hearing me out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you all those things.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank you, Madam Chair, for having this workshop and my colleagues for listening. And I sat and listened to both sides of this leaf blower we are addressing here tonight, that small engine. The takeaway for me from both sides that yes, we have to do something, but tonight is not the night that we can go and say we're going to ban this. But this is vital information to us here tonight to look forward and keep this as we go along with the responsibility of the CSEC committee. However, the technology is, it's still in its infancy, and it will eventually get there in time. And as it gets there in time, I hope that we also as a committee here would catch up with that and look into make some changes when that time comes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you all for sharing. Other questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I concur with my colleagues' comments, and I'm thankful to everyone for their testimony and appreciate both sides of the argument that were presented. This workshop has given me much to think about, and I understand that I'm in support of reading and buying this item. I also want to acknowledge the importance of curbing pollution due to chronic health issues caused by pollution in the city, and also considering the Valdez agenda. I think about independent contractors in my ward, primarily people of color who are mainly not rich and serve my community in which there's a marked financial disparity. I don't anticipate that they'd be able to afford new electric machines right now. And I could see this putting a lot of global majority-owned businesses out of business. I can also see this resulting in a rise in landscaping costs, which could make the service unaffordable for many of my residents. However, with consideration of the environment, I also consider the people who would be impacted. It seems to me that some form of assistance for small businesses would also be required in order for any consideration of a phase-in of gas-powered leaf blowers or, phase out of gas-powered leaf blowers and phase-in of electric blowers to be equitable. Equity is the key word for me. We would have to, I think we'd have to help the local industry prepare for the change to ensure that global majority-owned businesses and workers don't get phased out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you all. Any other? We heard both sides. First of all, thank you committee members for allowing this public hearing to take place. I know we had these discussions back in March. It is fair for us to hear everyone. With that being said, change is already here. And whether or not we as a board implement an ordinance, it's going to organically happen. And with that being said, what an ordinance would do is allow for the equitable part to take place. Perhaps establish grants, some kind of trade-in options, allow everyone hopefully the affordability of the change, but it's coming, it is here, and we really don't have a choice. It is for the health of human health and the health of our environment. And if we want to keep all these businesses in place, guess what? We need a healthy environment. So, and with that being said, we also have to understand that if we as a board are going to put legislation behind this, we need to be incredibly thoughtful. We need to obviously incorporate the law, corporation council. We need to establish good trade-in options, grants, affordability, equity. There's a lot of thought that will go into it. And once we reach that point, we have to also remember there will be another public process involved. This tonight was a workshop, a second workshop on this, but it's eye-opening. And it's a step towards a healthier environment for everyone. So with that being said, you know, if there's any other further discussion, we can vote to read and by the sign. Okay, all in favor of read and by the sign, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays, abstentions? The ayes have it, the motion carries.
Make a motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Second.
A motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. Any discussion on adjournment? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Okay, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holder. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. My son, I took my husband's car and my son had to use it for driving practice because for his license. And he didn't want that anything. And this is, I said to my husband,
Oh, yeah.
but you just take me out.